Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, we discuss historically haunted locations. We dive into the history and talk about who or what could be haunting them. Last week we talked about the St. Augustine Lighthouse. If you missed it, I'll be sure to link it up here for you. You guys, I'm really excited about this video. If I don't seem as, well, I don't know if I ever seem as enthusiastic, but if I just don't seem as enthusiastic as I usually do, we at the Blake household don't really feel too good. But I really wanted to make this video. I've been really excited to make it, so I'm really hoping that you guys will enjoy this as well. Now today's video is going to be a little different, just a little bit. But let me just be real, okay? I love talking and watching stuff about haunted places. It's fun to do. But I'm also interested in watching like true crime stuff, especially the older true crime. It really does fascinate me. I don't know if it's just the mysteriousness of it. I guess that's why everyone enjoys, well, not everyone, but usually white women in their 30s, I think, is the stereotype. I'm just kidding, I have no idea. But anyways, that is something else that I am interested in, and I found this case that kind of had both of them. So I'm really excited to dive into this one. So I hope you guys enjoy this type of content. And if you would like for me to talk more about true crime, I would enjoy doing that. Either way, they're both my jams. So I'm gonna stop jabbing and let's get into the video. Today we will be talking about the Villisca Axe Murder House. Now Villisca, Iowa is a small Midwestern town. It was named Villisca because that means pretty place or pleasant view. And it really started to grow in the early 1900s. They had several hotels, restaurants, stores, and theaters. And it would be home to approximately 2,500 people. Unfortunately, something horrible would happen in this town on June 10th of 1912. In 1903, a man named Josiah Moore and his wife Sarah would purchase a home in Villisca. And this home was located at 508 East 2nd Street. It's a white home that is 2 stories, and it was built in 1868. It has 3 bedrooms and 1 bathroom. Josiah and his wife had 4 children. The oldest was Herman, who was 11. Then there was Catherine, who was 10. Boyd was 7, and Paul was 5. Now the Moore family was very well known and very liked in the Villisca community. On June 9th, Catherine wanted her 2 friends to stay the night. They were sisters, and their names were Ina and Lena. Ina was 8 and Lena was 12. Now the plan was the whole family and those 2 girls would go to church, and then they would all go home together and the 2 girls would just stay the night with them. So that is exactly what happened. They all went to church to participate in the Children's Day program, and they all went back home and got home sometime between 9:45 and 10 in the evening. The next morning around 7, their neighbor Mary Peckham became concerned because she noticed that the Moore's house was pretty quiet, which is very unusual around that time. They would usually wake up early and do their morning chores. They had like a little farm, so they would have to take care of their chickens and go work out in the barn, I guess. So it was very unusual that it was quiet at 7 in the morning. So after a little while, Mary ended up going up to the house to knock on the door to see if everyone was okay. Well, whenever she went and knocked, there was no answer. She tried to open the door, but it was locked. So she went and let the chickens out so they could eat, I guess. And then she called Josiah's brother, who was Ross. So Ross came over and he knocked. There was no answer. He even tried to yell to see if, anyone could hear him, and it was just silence. So Ross ended up getting his spare key so that he could get into the house. And the neighbor Mary would stay on the porch just in case. So here's kind of the layout of the house. Whenever you come in through the front door, you're immediately into the kitchen. There's 2 doors on your left. The first door on the left, it leads into the family room, and then you go into the guest room. The second door leads up to the stairs up to the other 2 bedrooms. So Ross he just first checked out the main level, and so he went through the family room and into the guest room, and that's when he saw there were 2 bodies laying on the bed with a sheet covered over them. He immediately ran out of the house to Mary and had her call the police. So Mary called the sheriff, I believe his name was Hank, to come over and investigate. And while they were waiting on him, Ross called Ed, who was Josiah's employee at the time, to come over and investigate because he didn't want to walk through the rest of the house. I mean, can you blame him? So Ed goes inside, and soon enough he comes running outside saying that there has been people murdered in every bedroom in the house, and that he thinks he saw the murder weapon in the guest room, and he says it was an axe. A doctor would arrive to investigate to see what happened and to go and check the bodies. He said that they were all so brutally beaten that they were unrecognizable. I mean, how horrific. I'm really glad Ross didn't go up to check the rest of the house, or that would have been really traumatic for him to see his brother and his sister-in-law, his niece and nephews in that state. It'd just be so sad. The doctor does theorize that the murders happened somewhere between midnight and 5 that morning. Now, there were 2 cigarette butts in the attic, so they think that the killer hung out there until the Moores went to sleep. Also, there was another thing where there was I don't know if it was like a cotton or some sort of material that was in the closet in the guest room. They said it looked like someone, there's an imprint there that someone was just sitting there. So maybe they were hiding in the closet. Who knows? They speculate that the killer or killers started in Josiah and Sarah's room. Now, Josiah would receive more blows than any of the other family. He also was the only one that was killed with the blade part of the axe. Everyone else was hit by the blunt end. So they must have really had it out for Josiah. Each person was hit about 20 to 30 times. So that what they theorize what happened is that they started in Josiah and Sarah's room. They killed them there, and then they went over to across the hall where their children slept and killed all the children, and then went back to Sarah and Josiah's room and hit them some more before going down into the guest room. Now, they believe that everyone was killed in their sleep except for Lena. They believe she was awake because they saw that she had 2 defensive wounds, one on her arm and one on her leg. They were worried that she was assaulted because her nightgown was pulled up over her waist, so she was exposed when she was found, but they couldn't find any evidence of her actually being assaulted. So, but then again, this is the early 1900s, so who knows? Either way, very sad for her to experience that. I mean, everyone else was asleep, they think. So this reminds me of the Amityville horror murders. I mean, how could everyone... Sorry, my dog is barking. I'm really sorry if you can hear that. But this reminds me of those murders because everyone was asleep. You know what I mean? Like when the son goes in with a shotgun and kills everyone in the house, supposedly by himself. How does no one hear that? You'd think there'd be more killers than just one in that circumstance, because there's how many people in the household? There's 6, 7, 8 people in the house, and other than Lena, none of the ones upstairs woke up to the others being killed with an axe. Just weird to me. You think someone would wake up. I mean, the kids there were only, I think, 2 beds. So the kids were sharing beds. How do you not wake up to that? You know what I mean? Anyways, in each of the rooms, they did find marks, gouges in the walls and ceilings from when the murderer would hit them and then come up and hit the wall or ceiling because, he was hitting them with the blunt end. So... Now, there were some odd things that the killer or killers left behind, and that was that they left the murder weapon, which they partially wiped down, I guess, to get rid of their fingerprints. But they also left a slab of bacon wrapped in a cloth. Okay. Then they managed to grab a piece of clothing from every room, and they would cover all the mirrors and windows, which I thought was very strange. I get covering the windows, but the mirrors too? I wonder if it's so if anyone did wake up, they didn't see what was going on. I don't know. What do you guys think about that? I just find that very odd. Let me know what you guys think about them doing that, because apparently that's a thing, and we'll get into that later, but it doesn't really say why. So Another thing that struck odd to the investigators was that all the doors were locked, but there was also no sign of break-ins. But there were several suspects who stood out the most. The first was Reverend George Kelly. Now, he is an odd duck, let me tell ya. On June 8th, just literally a day before the murders, Kelly went and taught at the Children's Day services, the same services that the Moores family went to. But what really sticks out to me, and what did to a lot of people, was that he hopped on a train sometime between 5 and 5:30 the morning the Moores were murdered. And he supposedly tells other travelers 8 dead souls back in Villisca were butchered in their beds while they slept. I mean, yikes. And at this time, nobody knew about it yet because they didn't find them until about 7 that morning. So, I mean, how would he know that, you know? So it seems obvious, right? Like, he did it. That's what I thought when I first saw this. There's some other things to it. Now, Kelly does have a pretty sketchy past. He's known for peeping in on women and also for asking women and young girls to pose nude for him. But another thing was he really tried to insert himself in the Moores case. He even pretended to be a detective. So I guess the police department or all the detectives were gonna do a walkthrough at the Moores house. And he just told them he was a detective and they believed him, so he went on that walkthrough with them. I mean, later on in 1914, he would get arrested for sending obscene materials through the mail. I think he also put an ad in the newspaper or something requesting for an assistant who wouldn't mind being nude or something like that. I was like, oh my word. But after that, he would be sent to the National Mental Hospital in Washington, D.C. Now, while he was at the hospital, he wrote a letter to Montgomery County DA's office stating that he expected to be arrested for the Villisca murders soon. Like, you're still going at it? I'm like, I don't know. Let's keep going. He even signed a confession, but after being interrogated, he ended up recanting it, and he was acquitted for just not enough proof. So he sent them a letter and they arrested him because of that letter, and now he's saying he didn't do it. So, but here's the thing that kind of makes you think, because this was really, before they were able to diagnose people properly, I guess. So when he was a teenager, he had some sort of mental breakdown and he was never the same since. And later, after all of this, he should have been diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia. So honestly, who knows if he did it or not? He still could have, because who would have known about the bodies before that happened? Why would he just randomly say that, It just doesn't make sense. The next suspect that they looked into was Frank Jones. So Josiah worked for Frank for many years. He was one of Frank's loyal employees. And one day, Josiah informs Frank that he's gonna be quitting. And Frank is just shocked, why? Well, come to find out, Josiah opened up his own store just like Frank's and was selling similar items just down the street. And people who knew Frank said he was livid. I mean, wouldn't you be? They think he could have done it, but he was adamant, saying, I didn't do this, I would never do this to Josiah and his family, yada yada. Well, people think that he could have hired a hitman, and they believe that the hitman that he hired was William Mansfield. Now, William's MO was, his choice of weapon was an axe, and he but before he did the murders or committed the murders, he would cover the windows and mirrors with some sort of clothing or sheet. William was actually spotted getting on a train near the Moores home. They couldn't convict him because there just wasn't enough evidence connecting him to the crime. Similar to William, there was another serial killer who was suspected, and that was a man named Henry Moore, and he was no relation to Josiah and Sarah. But he killed his mother and grandmother with an axe. And his thing was also covering the mirrors and windows with clothing or a sheet. And then he would also cover the victims with a sheet. But there's nothing else that connects Henry to the Moores murders other than he has a similar MO. So this case is still unsolved, unfortunately. The home now is considered a tourist attraction. It's been stripped of its electricity and turned back to what it was in 1912 to get a more authentic feel for the tourists. So now let's get into the hauntings of this house. This home has a pretty dark history. We've established that, right? And usually when places have a dark history, they bring dark things into the house, or they're known to be haunted, you know what I mean? But many people did live in the house after the Moores died. But the thing is that all the owners, they didn't live there very long. So they're thinking it could be because of the hauntings. Things that are known to happen in the home are disembodied footsteps, things moving, voices, apparitions, shadows. When people go in there, they'll just get these bad feelings. Also, people have been scratched. It's a very scary place from what I can gather. Now here is a crazy story that I heard of the other day. I was like, when researching this, I was like, what hauntings go here, you know, and I came across this one and it's a good one. In 2014, there was a man who started working there. He was a maintenance worker, and his name was Joseph. He heard about all the stories, you know, heard about the hauntings. He was kind of a skeptic, didn't really believe in that kind of stuff. He just thought that the place was cool. Well, one day he noticed a man and his parents, they go into the home doing the tours, you know, and then they left. Well, the man came back, but this time he noticed that he had a knife hanging off of his pants or belt, and he kind of thought it was odd, but you know, he's like, wonder why he's coming back and wonder why he has a knife, you know, that's just kind of weird to me. So he really tried to not look that into it because he's just like, maybe I'm just overthinking things, you know. So the man goes up to the door where Josiah's standing, and Josiah's like, weren't you here earlier today? And the man was like, yeah, I decided to come back and give this house a piece of my mind. And Joseph was like, okay, good luck with that. Well, since it was later in the evening, he decided to go home because people do stay there overnight. I don't know why he just kind of left him there. It didn't really specify. He just said he just kind of left him at the house and then he went home. People were known to stay there when they ghost hunted, so maybe he rented the place for the night. I don't know. But anyways, Joseph left him there by himself is what I kind of gather, and then he went home. The next morning, Joseph woke up to his phone blowing up with people just going crazy about what happened at the Villisca house that night. Apparently, people told him that that man found with a knife in his chest in the house, and he ended up surviving, but he was life flighted to the nearest hospital. And it was a while. Joseph always wondered, you know, like, why? Like, what happened? Did he do that to himself, or did someone do that to him? Like, he had all these questions and no answers for a while. Well, one day, Joseph went to work and he saw that same man in, I think it was like an outbuilding or something. They were doing an interview. Some TV show was doing an interview of his experience that night. So Joseph went up to him and he was like, "You, you're the man. You're the one that went into the house that night. You're the one that was stabbed in the chest." And he was like, "Yeah, that was me." And Joseph was like, "What happened?" The man said that he essentially just goes into the home and immediately starts provoking it. Whatever spirit is in the home, he just calling it out, which never do that, okay? I think he was in the guest room on the main level. He said after that, he just blacked out, and the next thing he remembers is waking up in the ER. So crazy, right? I mean, crazy stuff happens in this home for sure. Many people have experienced crazy stuff. I would never stay there overnight. I don't even know if I'd visit it. A little too dark for me. But this place is very popular for ghost hunting. Ghost Adventures went there. Scariest Places on Earth went there. And I think some podcasts talk about it too. Guys, let me know what you think about this video today. Whether you enjoyed me talking about kind of like a murder mystery, true crime. If that's your thing, let me know. I can always alternate them because I like talking and researching about both. So just let me know. Be sure to hit the like button. And if you're not already, don't forget to subscribe to my channel if you enjoy this content. I am here for you every Wednesday at 10 a.m. But that's it for me today, guys. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day, and I will see you next Wednesday. Bye!